Hi, I'm Andy. Welcome to C Sharp Puzzles. I'm just going to run you through the required software. I'll just give you a quick walk over now and then I'll go into more depth just in case you don't want to watch the rest of the video. So you'll need to download .NET 8.0. Just download the SDK that has both the runtime to run the programs and the software to actually develop it. Software Development Kit is what it stands for. So download that, links in the description. Download Microsoft Visual Studio. This is the IDE we'll be using for the whole course. Don't get it confused with Visual Studio Code, which is like a lightweight editor. It's the Visual Studio full version is what we want, and you can get a free community version for this. You'll also want to download Git, just so we can run Git commands in the command line. And I'll be using GitHub Desktop as the Git client rather than using command line. I'll be doing that every puzzle. So that's everything we need. I'll just walk you through how to install these step by step. So go to .net.microsoft.com and try to download .NET 8.0. We're going to use the Software Development Kit. I'm in Windows, so I'm going to go for the x64. Let's just watch it install, watch it download. And then let's open the file and install it. Okay, so I've downloaded it. A lot of you might be wondering, what is .NET? So .NET is like, I suppose it's a framework, or you can consider it like an ecosystem of different frameworks that all work together. This is essentially what the C# language uses to run C# and to run various other frameworks that it needs. So think of this as like something that's operating in the background. And you will see an awful lot of jobs advertised as not C# developer jobs, but .NET developer jobs, because they expect you to use things like ASP.NET in your job and various other things that come bundled as part of this .NET ecosystem. So think of .NET as several different frameworks of which most C# developers use on a daily basis. And this is version 8 of it. Okay, so it says they're all been installed, great. Let's click close. Next up will be Visual Studio. So visualstudio.microsoft.com. Again, don't get this confused with Visual Studio Code, which is a free lightweight sort of text editor, which can also be used to do C# and to do the .NET framework stuff. But the actual full Visual Studio IDE is just a lot better. It's a lot more powerful. So you even get Visual Studio Code within the same page. So Visual Studio 2022 is what we want, and we want the community version, the free version. Allow it through the firewall. This is going to be a fairly lengthy installation because you're downloading a lot of stuff to get this IDE to work. So at the moment we're just going to install the installer, which will then allow us to download the IDE itself and any additional packages that we want for it. Okay, so this is then the Visual Studio installer. And it's asking us what kind of packages do we want to install along with Visual Studio. Now these are all very useful things. We don't need any of them. But just in my regular day-to-day life, I use ASP.NET a lot. I probably do some Azure development and I do some WPF apps. To be honest, I don't think there's much else you would really need unless you're doing the mobile stuff or game development with like Unity and things. I might do the data storage thing as well, so I can access SQL databases. But the whole point is you don't need to download or use any of this. I would probably definitely select ASP.NET Web Development. It's very, very common with C#. You may as well install this. The rest of it, don't worry about it. And it's just got some additional stuff. So just click install. Okay, that download and installation's finished. It looks like it's going to boot Microsoft Visual Studio immediately after the startup. But you might want to kind of take note that this is the Visual Studio installer, and this is how you can update and repair and uninstall Visual Studio. And also you can have different versions of Visual Studio. So we're going to be using Visual Studio Community 2022. But in your career, you might encounter an old program that can only be run in Visual Studio 2020 or Visual Studio 2015. So just keep that, close it, we don't need it. Next up would be Git. Go to git-scm.com. If I bring up a console window, if I type in the commands git clone and I hit enter, we can see the term Git is not recognized. It doesn't know what Git is, so if we're going to be using the command line to clone a repository, we have to install Git for it to work. So git-scm.com, just download the latest release. I am going to go for the 64-bit installer for Windows. Yeah, just next finish in this. Yep, so stuff there. I think all that's fine. Yep. For this, I wouldn't choose Vim. Vim's a very difficult text editor for beginners to use. I would, if you have Notepad++ installed, I'd choose that, or I'd just say use Notepad, the one that comes as default with Windows. Or if you've downloaded Visual Studio Code, select that. I'm just going to go with Notepad++ because I already have it installed. Let Git decide would be the next one. Again, just go with the recommended option. Use the bundled OpenSSH. Use the OpenSSH library. It's just really next finish. Yeah, use Minty. You could choose the Windows default console window if you want, but I'm fine using Minty as a fancy sort of text sort of command prompt that comes bundled with Git. And yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Next finish. Install. Okay, so now we have Git installed. You can go to the GitHub repository for puzzle 1 or any of the puzzles. Hit the code drop down menu, copy the URL, and we'll need to close the terminal window and open up a new terminal window, and then navigate to wherever you want to save the repository. So I've already got a folder called Git repos, and inside that folder we can just use the git clone command, and you can paste in that HTTPS URL and it should now download the code, and there it is there. So that's how you would download the code using the command line. I think we should probably be using GitHub Desktop to do this, because it's easier once you get a bit more familiar with Git and you're working as part of a team. So in a developer job, it's unlikely you're going to have your own repository where you're the only person uploading and downloading and forking and cloning. You're probably going to be working as part of a team, and you kind of need to have a visual representation of who in your team's running what branch and what time a branch was committed. We won't be using any of those features, but you may as well just get used to using a Git client, and GitHub Desktop's a really easy one for beginners. If I go to Google, another one is SourceTree. It's very popular. So this is, you can kind of see a visual representation of what it looks like here. You've got the main branch, and then you've got other people, other authors committing and branching other branches out into it and merging and stuff. So you may as well just kind of get used to this. SourceTree's a bit more difficult to learn. It's like learning how to fly a fighter jet, but it's worth it in the end. Let's just use GitHub Desktop. It's easy for beginners. So go to desktop.github.com and download that. Okay, now if I go back into my Git repos folder and I just delete the puzzle that we've downloaded using the git command, I'll show you how you can download it using GitHub. So we'll get rid of that source tree, copy the URL from the code drop down and whatever puzzle you want. Go to GitHub Desktop, File, Clone Repository, go to the URL tab, paste that URL in there. At the local path, just make sure you're saving it to wherever you want. I've made a Git repos folder in C drive. Click clone. And there you go, so that's it, downloaded the files. If I go back into that folder, we can see the codes there again. So you won't really have to look at this change section. This is more, it'll keep track of all the changes you've made to that, and you start seeing them populate here, and then you could upload them to your own repository or whatever, or update what, but you won't be doing that. You'll just be sort of running the puzzles in your local machine, but you may as well learn about this stuff. And finally, you might have noticed this command window that I'm using isn't the standard one with Windows. It's got tabs, and I can choose between PowerShell and command prompt. So this is free from Microsoft Store. It's called Windows Terminal. Just type in terminal and give that an install. I just like it better than using the standard command prompt, because you could maybe have something running in this tab. You know, you're running software here via command, and then you go into this tab and you can do other stuff, and it's just easier than having other windows all across the screen. So that's everything.